you be the main host,
All
and
right.
I'll come along for the ride because I didn't really prepare. So
Well, I didn't either, except for this. I wrote a few things,
more than I got.
but I wrote it in
Actually, I did
pencil.
make one note. I made one
Okay.
note, and I can talk about it. Um,
Now or later?
I mean, I think
Will it
one of
just come? It'll come up.
it'll come up.
Okay. Let's start. Let's start with intros. Who are we?
Hmm.
Why are we here? I'll start. My
Yeah.
name's Chris. I am a designer, going on 20 years now in the field. Uh, Former graphic designer, print designer, got into tech, really through mobile. Got an iPhone in like 2010, fell in love with iPhone. Still love mobile. That's another topic. We could go on a big tangent about mobile. But got into tech, been in tech ever since, branding side, product side. And I've managed all these years to never learn how to code. And I sometimes say that as like, I'm kind of proud of that. Other times I'm not very proud of it at all. But the reason I haven't learned to code is because I like working with developers. And I've
Hmm.
always felt like I could learn to be a mediocre developer, but I'm not sitting here watching YouTube videos about coding. I'm watching design stuff. So I've stayed in my lane, but I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. So that's my story, Nathan. Who are you?
Oh gosh. Let's see. Well, so I consider myself a designer. I've transitioned to a bit more of a developer these days. Um, and I think my intro to design goes way back. And I'll try to make this brief, but so my dad, he sold commercial printing paper, and they had
Nice.
in his office, they had a sample room. In the
Ooh,
sample room, like all the paper manufacturers would make these amazing
yes.
design like portfolio pieces.
I remember
What
this.
the
French
most,
paper.
yeah, like the best paper, the best printing to like show off the paper,
Yeah,
the feel of it, the thickness, like it was just, and I just fell in love. I would just go there and I would just hang out in the sample room, just
that sounds
pawing through
amazing.
stuff. It was so cool.
Yeah.
Um, that was like my first kind of unintentional um, intro to design, and it wasn't until much later that I actually realized that was a career
Mm,
path. But anyway, so I'll fast forward a bit. So, and this kind of shows like the technical side, but I was actually a car salesman. I don't know if you realize this or we ever talked about
really?
that.
I
But I
didn't.
sold,
I didn't know that.
yeah, I sold cars in like early, like 1999, 2000 in that era.
Amazing.
And like the internet was just becoming like a sales tool.
Mm,
Um, and I was fascinated by the web and I wanted to
yeah.
like build websites,
Nice.
and I convinced my like sales manager, like, hey, I want to be like the internet sales manager. I want to take care of like
Mm,
all the internet stuff,
that's
which
amazing.
turned into like being a terrible salesperson. But I just like sat there and like, basically was trying to teach myself how to build websites, right?
What kind of cars, by the way? What dealership were you in?
This was at Planet Ford. So I was
Okay,
selling
selling Fords.
new and used, new Fords and used vehicles.
Okay, nice.
Um, anyway, so I hated that job. It was
Yeah.
terrible, but I fell in love with the concept of building websites, and that's when I decided to go back to school,
Mm,
or really, well, back to school. That's a whole other story, but and I went to Sinclair, and I wanted to get a not even a degree, but a certificate in like web design.
yeah.
In doing that, my first class, man, there's a whole story there. But my first class was real quick side note. So I had failed out of school already, and that's when I went to go sell cars.
Got
So I
it.
had to petition to get back into Sinclair. They were like,
Okay.
yeah, I had to write letters, had to go talk to the
Wow.
president, all that. It was crazy. Anyway, so they let me take one class to prove myself.
Yeah.
So I sign up for typography.
Oh,
I
good
had
one.
this amazing teacher, Cynthia Colley.
Nice.
She was like super hardcore,
Yeah.
but like I fell in love with typography.
Nice.
which is probably not apparent in my design these days, but like I just loved it. And this was back when this is what 2002-ish.
Yeah.
So like I don't know, things were a lot different there. But yeah, so
Yeah.
then I decided, all right, I'm gonna get an associate's degree in design. It was visual communications, but um yeah, so that's how I got into design.
Cool.
Um and then my path from there was spent a couple years working at an agency. Um, Left there, started my own thing, did that for like 10 years, went back, worked for uh, Atomic Robot. That's where
Yeah.
you and I met, and
Yeah.
then left there and then went back on to my own. And that's where I'm
Rest
at.
rest in peace to rest in peace to Opt
Opt
Up
up.
app.
Yep. Yep.
Still exists. I think it still exists in the Kroger. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but uh, that's really cool though. I never knew that about your story. That's great though. Typography, that's a great place to start. I was in school in 2002, and I was equally just obsessed with typography. That's how I started. When I was in school, I think we had like one person studying web design, but we were all graphic designers. We were all preparing to go work in the print industry.
Hmm.
Most of us. That's what I did. That's what I did for a few years. But yeah, typography, it's so, it's such a great, it's just a great field.
Yep.
Is it a field? Yeah, there's like typographers. It's a field.
Oh yeah, for
Uh,
sure. Yeah.
it's a huge, I should say it's a huge area of like interest for me. And just part of that reason, and I think it's probably why you fell in love with it too, is like you can change the whole mood of something just by changing the font. That's it. Change the
Yeah.
font, it'll change everything. It's like, oh, you want to be sophisticated? Times New Roman. You want to be fun? Helvetica back in the day. Gotham. Gotham was in the mix. Uh, you want to be fun? Comic Sans.
Common sense.
That's
Knew
it.
it was coming. Yeah,
Papyrus.
it's the voice, right? It's the tone of voice.
Yeah.
Is it a radio voice, an NPR voice? Is it
Yeah.
someone yelling at you? Yeah,
Right.
I mean, most people don't realize how powerful just typography. I mean, and that was
100%.
like you learn that like, oh wow, you can make an entire amazing poster with nothing but type.
Yeah. 100%.
So it was a great entry point for me for design. But
That's
yeah, during that time as well, like the web was very early on.
yeah.
We were using back at Sinclair. This was I think we were using Dreamweaver maybe,
Yeah.
and I built
I
a
used to poke around with Dreamweaver a
okay,
little bit.
but that was like it was kind of gooey, kind of text
Yeah.
editor. So like I enjoyed that because it kind of hits that for me. It's like I love that balance of creativity and logic,
Yeah.
and I crave both.
Yeah.
And that's where like web design just like I get to scratch both itches, and I love
Yeah.
that.
When I was in school and working in print, it took me until 2010, 2011 to get into software design. But when I was in school and at that time in the mid 2000s, there were some cool websites, but most of the web was just like so ugly.
Yeah.
I felt like, and maybe that's part of why I didn't want to do it because with print, I could make something as beautiful as I wanted to, and didn't have to fuss with, spacing, like adjusting for Internet Explorer or whatever. But I think when the iPhone came out, the iPhone was this thing, and it was the first time for me, like, oh wow, like this has the same sensibilities of print, and the early iPhone pulled from print too. Like back in the time, you probably remember this. As a print designer, I was doing so many textures, so
Hmm.
much like, had like the go-to Photoshop, filters. Just gonna rough this thing up, make it look like a print. And not that iOS was like roughed up in that way, but it had that same kind of like skeuomorphic. Um, I'm trying to just hit all the buzzwords,
Yeah.
the skeuomorphic, uh, but I think it that was kind of my foray into software and just. But then I fell in love with it so much more than print. I still love print. I don't really do print anymore, but I would still love to do a print project. But with software, you're making something, you're building, you're not just like making a piece of art or something that's like static or an ad or something. You're making something that people use. You're like making a tool. And I love that. That felt like the culmination, of like just things that I felt my whole life. Kind of going back to watching my grandpa. He was a carpenter, made cabinets and built houses and stuff. And I was always just so intrigued by that and love tech too. I remember using an old Macintosh when I was like probably 9 years old
Hmm.
and changing the fonts. There was like 12 fonts in that thing, and it was like, oh, this is amazing. So it was
Yeah.
kind of always in me to be in interested in software and just building. But I think the iPhone kind of got me into it, and I love it. I've been loving it ever since.
So let me take a step back a little bit because I
Yeah,
think you're hitting on something that's so intrinsic about print versus certainly on the web and somewhat in I mean just like I guess if you open up a Photoshop canvas,
yeah,
right? You want to splash a color in the bottom left corner, you put it there,
yeah,
right? If you want to nudge it up a little bit, you nudge it up a little bit.
yeah.
On the web,
I love nudging
right, exactly, right?
so
You just
much.
it's free form. You do
Yeah,
what you want. It's more akin to like, a piece of paper.
yeah,
Um, but on the web, like the default is if you put something on the page, it's going to be at the very top left hand side,
yeah.
And it's like then you have to like figure out how to push it where you want it.
Mm,
And in those early days when you're talking about the web was just kind of ugly, the
yeah.
tools to move things around were not sophisticated.
Mm,
And it was really this kind of like play between um, engineers who kind of created the first web browsers, and
yeah.
then designers would try to like push, like, what can we do with this? Like, and
Mm,
there was this, if you've been designing the web for a while, you know that like a lot of websites in the probably mid to late 90s were using table layouts.
yeah.
So basically,
Was that
like,
like Dreamweaver? Or Dreamweaver used tables, is that right?
yeah, they kind of,
Yeah.
if I recall, they made that kind of easy to do. But
Yeah.
basically, yeah, you would put a big table on the screen, and then like if I want to let a 12 column grid, so I'd make sure I've got 12 columns in my table and a bunch
Yeah.
of rows. But then I would like turn off all the visibility of like your rows and your um, columns,
Yeah.
like all your borders and all that stuff. So you'd turn that off, and then you could put stuff in specific columns. But it was an
Mm,
awful way to like lay out a page because
yeah.
it's just there's just so much like unnecessary, markup to be able to do that. But then it was
Yeah.
that kind of push and pull. It's like, well, this is a terrible way, so we need, and that's like CSS came out, and then you can like, position things on. I mean, there's a whole conversation there, but it was designers getting into that engineering world where it's like, hey, we want to make beautiful
I like that.
websites. We
Yeah.
need better and better tools, and it's still, I mean, it's to this day, it's like we're still making new CSS
Mm,
capabilities, Flexbox and Grid, and there's a new like masonry layout for Grid, or
mm,
now maybe it's Flexbox, I don't know, but to do like
yeah.
like the Pinterest layout, and like people were
Yep.
blown away by the Pinterest layout.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, just it's that you know engineering and designers, or the creative folk, to just kind of push and pull on what's possible.
I like that. I love that. I feel that. I love pushing on devs to try to,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think it brings up, I think, a good point, which is so often if I'm making something or designing a piece of software, a web or mobile, it's kind of like the old cliche where you kick it over to the dev, it comes back and it's like, wow, that's not it. That's like I got like that perfect space.
Yeah.
I went back and forth between 12 pixels and 16 and 14, and now it's like 23.6 or whatever, or probably not decibels. That's probably more what I
Actually,
would be
real
within.
quick, real quick. The design as a designer, you probably put 23.6 and said, "This is perfect. This is exactly where it needs to be."
Yeah,
And then
maybe
the
like
dev
10
was like,
years
"Can we just make it
ago.
20?"
Yeah. Uh, maybe a long time ago. Or if I did, it's because I was being rushed or something, and I was like, ah, shoot, I didn't fix that.
Yeah.
But point being that, um, and I've talked to a lot of devs in this process, and I love working with devs. I love devs. Um, they're great. We need to work together. But this is why I'm intrigued to talk to you too, because you're like that two in one. Um, but I think that the
Point 0.5
same,
and point 0.5 of one, I would say.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Mediocre dev, mediocre designer. Kind of
you're doing it.
useful. It's kind of useful, it
Yeah,
works.
you're doing it.
But yeah.
Um, but it always strikes me though, and it's kind of gets me excited to hear you talk about this is like I want to believe that it's possible to develop something that's just exactly how I intended it. I want to believe that's possible, even if it has decimals. Just kidding. I wouldn't do that now. I really try to have everything as like a multiple of eight nowadays, or four maybe, but no more decimals. But
But see, I mean, is that, but why not? Why not have
well,
that? I mean, yeah, it's, if you're like, there's no I mean, there's no 8 point grid in nature.
yeah, that's true.
Y- I'm looking at this probably default background on my MacBook, and it's like, it looks like the redwoods in California.
Yeah,
Like everything's just everywhere, and it's beautiful, you
yeah.
know? I think maybe sometimes we do engineer too much in design because it is easier to
Mm,
just have one variable. It's like, spacing small, and I'm gonna use spacing small everywhere.
yeah,
It's good. It's probably good to do that, but then you kind of lose a bit of that, I don't want to say humanity, but like,
yeah.
the nature.
I like where you're going with that. I love that. I think I think that's true. I think part of the reason that I like to use multiples of eight or four or two, or I don't even try to use like odd number spacing. Part of it is just like it's just helpful and efficient for me on the design side,
Yeah.
to like just know that this spacing between this title and subtitle is going to be like 8 or 12 or 16. Um, so
Well,
it is
and
helpful.
that is um not to kick off another topic, but like that's the difference between fine art and commercial art.
Mm,
There's art
yeah,
totally free form and it's whatever the heart desires, and then there's commercial art where there's a business, reason for doing this or being efficient or whatever.
yeah,
Painter on the canvas, he's not like, I need to be efficient at this.
right.
I need a consistent, I mean, maybe, I don't know if
Maybe
you're
so.
trying to sell
Maybe
your
so.
art,
There's,
but anyway,
I think they have different flavors of things they do to be consistent or efficient, or, you know, I don't know, using the same colors for different things, or and not mixing up new colors or something might be like
you have a
similar to
brand.
that. Um,
An
but
artist has a brand that they're trying to kind of
yeah,
maintain. Yeah.
I think the like fine art versus commercial art, I like that distinction. But even when you said commercial art, I'm like,
Such an old term.
well, it just kind of, what do you say? Old school?
It's just an old term, like who,
Yeah,
like
yeah, it
commercial
is.
art.
Commercial, yeah, commercial art. It kind of feels like pentagram air, like going back to like some
Yeah.
early like pentagram
Yeah.
folks might call, or like I don't know, I remember who's the woman there. She's got a podcast. Anyway, she's a legend, but I can't remember her name. But she, I think like when you were getting into graphic design in the 80s or 90s, it was not, this isn't fine art, this is commercial art.
Yeah.
Where I think it falls short a little bit, or feels incomplete, at least for me personally, is like uh, maybe for me there's a distinction between fine art and like software, building software.
Mm.
or like building a tool, um, or a product design. So maybe it's like, fine art and like product art or product design, which is ultimately commercial. It's ultimately commercial art or commercial design, but it's more about like, how do we build a product that real people are going to use? Whereas an art, if you're a fine artist, you're making something, you're making a statement, you're kind of making something that people they might interact with it. You might make digital art. There's a lot of digital artists out there, interactive digital artists, but yeah, so I think my point there is that there's a consideration of efficiencies and all that, or like I want this page to load quickly or something
Yeah.
because it's a real person's going to be using this. Um, so
No, that makes sense. Yep.
yeah, but to kind of go back to what we were talking about a couple minutes ago, this idea of I think this is what's intriguing to me about learning how to code is I would love to be able to have complete control over everything and not be dependent on like hoping that someone that I'm working with notices that that color is a little bit different than that other color or the spacing here is so yeah.
That's it. So can I tell you the one note that I wrote down for this call?
Yeah.
Because I
We're
knew
finally
you
getting
would.
to it. You buried the
Yeah.
lead this long.
So I don't even know. I mean, it's not that big of a story. It's like I just remember when so my mom so back in the day, I used to always use Windows computers, always wanted a Mac, couldn't afford it, whatever. Finally got a
Yeah.
Mac, use that, it was my daily driver. My mom and dad still used PCs.
Yeah.
And like this gap between like since I used a PC last kept growing and they would ask for technical support and it was getting harder and harder to like help them. And I just kept
Yeah.
saying like, "Mom, just get a Mac. Just get a Mac. Like it'll just work for you. Like you don't have to you won't have
Yeah.
these issues. Just get a Mac." And I kept telling her that. And then one day she got a Mac and it was a complete mess because like, part of it's just, her demographic,
Yeah.
or her age and her not growing up with technology, but it was an absolute mess. Like I did more
Mm.
support helping her with the Mac than I did with the Windows machine. Um,
Because she was used to the Windows machine.
she was used to it.
Yeah.
So I guess the only point there is like the more I think about, because I've said this so many times, like, yeah, I think all designers should learn to code. I've written
Yeah.
about it
Mm.
to some degree. Um, and I think there's value in that, but I don't think that's all designers.
Yeah.
I think that's designers that want to learn how to code or designers that have an interest in like 8-point grids and creating tokens and variables in Figma and setting your components up with like all the
Yeah.
different props and all that. If you do that, if you like to do that in Figma, then yeah, you're probably a pretty good candidate to in some capacity write some code because
Yeah.
you're essentially doing that. Your brain's already thinking through those abstractions or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but, back to like Photoshop, blank canvas, putting a, splash of color at the bottom left, like if that's what makes you happy
Yeah.
and you're not watching coding videos, like then is that like my mom getting a Mac? Like, I don't know. Maybe that's not a great analogy, but like
Yeah.
that would be my only fear. I would love
Yeah.
to try to teach you at least, in some capacity, like how to do some stuff with code.
Yeah.
And not even really with code, with just like I guess it depends on if you want to do mobile, like native mobile, or for the web. I could teach you more on the web, but
Yeah.
um, that's my only fear.
Yeah.
Is it really something you want to do?
Yeah.
Because it's crazy. Coding is weird. Like it's a completely different like side of your brain.
Yeah. I think that's what intrigues me about it. And so I think those are valid questions and concerns. And I haven't learned how to code up to this point, almost 20 years in. So what's different now? Um,
Well, can I answer that? I
yeah.
mean, right now it's like I don't know if it makes it better or worse, honestly. But like with AI,
Mm.
that's a huge
We haven't even
that's a
touched on
huge
that.
Well, it's a huge part of that equation, but honestly, I don't know if it makes it better or worse.
Mm,
I think 6 months ago, I would have said, or a year ago, I don't know how long we've been using AI now. I probably would have said like, oh, it makes it so much better.
yeah.
But I feel like if you don't have some fundamentals, you're gonna get, you're gonna start off with like, oh, this is awesome. Oh,
Mm,
cool. Oh, what? No, no, no. Oh, I'm losing it. And then you're just like, what do I have? I can't do anything with
yeah.
this now.
Yeah.
I've got spaghetti code.
Yeah.
So,
S- Yeah. So I think the whole AI thing is really interesting. I'm sure we'll get into that. Um, but I think it'd be helpful to hold on. I gotta I'm getting texts from my wife. That's gonna be part of
oh,
this video, so I
that's all
didn't
right.
turn on do not disturb. She didn't say anything weird or bad, so um but anyway, what's intriguing to me is just learning, or at least to start, is learning just the basics, just learning the like to I it would be nice to at least become fluent. Partly because I like I said, I do love working with devs, but I'm like so clueless that I don't even like I don't know. It would be nice to just learn a little bit about what they're doing.
Hmm.
And I'm always trying to do this just in general, like with devs, less about kind of the foundation, but more if I'm, say I'm designing something in an app and I want to have this. Uh, so let's say with the baseball app that I've been working on.
Hmm.
With the baseball app I've been working on with our mutual friend Brendan, we had this kind of like two lineup cards that we were going to swap out next to each other. So so we debated a lot like does the other card like kind of go back behind this other one and
Mm,
this and that,
yep.
and we had a lot of it was really tricky how to do it because I wanted it to kind of the front card to kind of fade and the other card kind of fades to the front while that one's fading to the back. And I was really intrigued by like I don't want to be the type of designer that just like here you go figure it out. Uh, I want to be what I'd like to do and what I'd rather do is like tell me I'm curious how you even build this thing,
Hmm.
you know, and like what are the implications of all of this? And I learned a lot in that process. And there was like some I don't want to get into all the details. I would love to because I love the details, but there was just like this a few things with how we had to do it that I really learned a lot about. Like, oh, that does make sense. I can build that in Figma, but it makes sense why you can't just like build that in code.
Hmm.
So that was also an example of hitting a limitation, you know, of I can do this thing in Figma or Photoshop or whatever. Now I'm hitting a limitation, which I think is part of the impetus for me to learn too, because it's like I want to figure that out. I want to figure out how to build that in code. Um, so
Well,
I'm in.
let me throw this out there because I just kind
Yeah.
of bashed AI. Not
Okay.
bashed it, but like so maybe a way where you could utilize AI is like if you asked Brendan to, hey, can you send me basically a demo of that little interaction?
Yeah.
Just send me like the code that makes that work. Little instruction, maybe you figure out how to get that up and running on your system.
Yeah.
And then maybe you can talk with AI and say, "Hey, here's what I'm trying to do. Can you come up with a way to do this?" Right?
Mm,
And then but maybe you say, or maybe even say this to Brendan, like, can you give me like a couple of properties or sliders or, numbers that I can play with
mm,
to like make that faster, slower, whatever the Z index or I don't,
yeah.
I vaguely remember what you guys were working on, but
Yeah.
um,
I did sort of do that, but I did end up getting it not for that particular interaction, but I did get into the Xcode file, and well, part of it was he would send over something and it would be off by like a pixel or two, and I was like, man, I told him like those exact numbers, and he put those exact numbers in, and so I was like, well, I'll just get into the Xcode, and I went in and like fixed the numbers, and they weren't like a one to one, which drove me crazy because I was like,
yep, yep,
why,
yep,
why? I want to know why. Because
yep.
what I do know about code is like these machines are dumb machines. They're just following instructions. So it's like, well, there's like an instruction that's wrong somewhere
Hmm.
or something. There's like a break. So I'm like, that drives me crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to figure that stuff out. But I was able to get it, and it. it was the better way to do it because I just went in and fixed everything, adjusted all the numbers, hit play, looked at my phone. Oh, that's not right, blah, blah, blah. Instead of just like sending Brendan over like a 10-page PDF with that's notated with all these different. So I was able to kind of do a lot of that. But I still I still couldn't like spin up an app on my own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Well, but I mean, if you had a way to, I mean, yeah, like you're anyone just starting out is a long way from being able to do like complex animations that are completely custom and not part of some library, you know?
yeah,
Um, so I don't know what I'm trying to say. I mean, but does that not feel like a good maybe starting point? Like, so I guess there's
yeah,
maybe two paths. Like you kind of go into it from like ground zero, like what are the basic fundamental concepts of like computer programming? But then
yeah,
that, if you're not into that, it's like these layer or these concepts are like they don't mean it. Like I can't, what does that do for me to,
yeah,
to put the color on the bottom left of the page? Like
yeah,
what's a for each loop, you know? What's a
hmm
variable? Like what are all those things?
yeah,
Those are really important to understand programming, but like if you're just trying to, Brendan's got something that's pretty close and you want to just like tweak it, being able to either use AI or I think another thing that designers and coders should do more of is like pair program.
yeah,
Where it doesn't feel like why is Chris worried about this like point 0.5 pixel that it's off? Like it's like I don't see. But if you're
yeah,
like, hey, let's have a session where we're gonna spend an hour and like let's
yeah.
go through this UI and like let's tweak it, let's make it perfect.
That is how
Um,
I love to work with devs. I love to like work in real time with devs.
I
Um,
think I feel
yeah,
like that doesn't happen enough, at least in my
totally,
experience.
totally. It's the best way. We've got less than 2 minutes left.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I'm intrigued by learning the foundation or just like and on the website too. Just learning, yeah, even just learning what a variable is or what does HTML mean? What does CSS mean?
Hmm.
Like starting from those just like basic principles. And I haven't really watched the YouTube videos or whatever, but I also like to learn by watching someone else do it too.
Hmm.
Or just working with people. I like working with people. Not that I don't love YouTube. I'm a huge YouTube fan, but
But it's different
so
if someone's sitting there like answering your specific questions in real
yeah,
time as they come up for you.
yeah,
Hugely
exactly,
valuable. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, or like, why'd you
Yep.
do it like that? Or
Yeah.
tell me about that. What is that?
Right.
What does that mean? I don't understand that.
Yep.
Um,
So
so
are we real quick? Are we done at this call when the call ends, or are we going to do another one, or what do you want to do?
I say let's wrap this one. Let's
Let's
wrap it
let's wrap it.
up. Let's wrap it
Okay.
up. It's a good intro.
Yep.
The next one, I say the next one we get into, I want to build a Hello World page, Hello
We'll
World
do
website.
something. I have ideas and I'm going to think about
Okay,
it, but we'll do something like that.
perfect.
Cool. Hey,
Sweet.
good start, man. Good
Yeah,
chatting.
yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
all right. Well, I'll see you in the next one.
All right.
See ya.
See ya.